because the women are not in Kinshasa, they're not in the cities. The women who are they're in the villages, and it doesn't get there. It doesn't, and so there was a lot of talk about the need for having perhaps a force like the one that is in Liberia, which has a group of Indian women police officers who are there, and apparently that's making a huge difference on the ground. Not only because it's the women, the Indian women themselves, but also because there's a woman president who is making a tremendous difference. So there needs to be a real paradigm shift in the whole way this situation is.
Vijay, thank you very much. With your UN hat on now,
yes.
Briefly,
I mean, when we say what MONUC is doing, first of all, that they're supplying humanitarian aid to over a million and a half people, because they got the actual petrol, they got the vehicles, they got convoys supplying food and other things. That's the one thing positive they're doing. Secondly, I would say that they are monitoring the situation, because 1,800 of the staff of the MONUC is on day and night patrol. Okay, but in relation to the country, as both the speakers have said, it's one patrol to 100,000 people. So how much effective it can be. Second, I would say there are things which are a bit more powerful than MONUC who are in operation in DRC. Like, for example, MONUC is playing a carrot and stick policy. Like, for example, the representative Alan Doss has said, if President Kabila says we could pluck Nakunda from wherever his base is and bring it to task, because he is one of the rebel leaders. But because President Kabila doesn't want that to happen, and there is an election coming, he doesn't want to fall out with any of the rebel leaders. He wants to win the election. He instead asking the UN for an exit strategy. They are asking, so can you get out of this country? Because he wants a more bigger base for himself, which means we all know chaos for everyone.
Right. Thank you very much. Right, can we keep the answers brief, please? Because I know a few people want to ask questions. Okay, question, please. Right, Neville.
Yes, you said the United Nations is not doing much there. But I think one has to define what you mean by the United Nations. If you go to the Charter, the opening words of the Charter are not we the government or we the nation states, it's we the peoples. And it's the voice of the people which is not heard nearly enough in UN headquarters in New York. And you'll find United Nations civil servants will say this time and time again, that there was a lack of political will by the nation states of the world to do things necessary, for example, in the Congo. And so you have, a huge country, 17,000 peacekeepers. What can they do, as you say, Vijay? They're given an impossible task. They are mandated to do X, Y, and Z, but there are no funds enough for it. And so I don't know whether your organisations will, Action UN Renewal and your organisation, is actually bringing pressure to bear on the politicians to invest more money in trying to get the UN to solve some of these problems. Incidentally, Alan Doss, the director of the UN operations in the Congo, is actually, you can actually ask him these questions yourself on May the 20th, because there was a UNA conference then at the Royal United Service Institute, and he is talking about MONUC, and you can register for that conference and go and ask him these tough questions. He actually appeared last year, and he said it was very dispiriting. MONUC was actually disarming some of the militias who behaved appallingly badly, and one of the terms of disarmament was to absorb them into the army. So they changed one uniform for another, and the reason they signed up for the army was they were given a gun. And so quite often they joined the Congolese army for the wrong reason. I don't know what we can do about that.
Can you, Neville, that doesn't really mean it, that's a comment in itself. Neville, can you give people the details of that conference? conference, please?
Yeah, the details of the conference, you have to go to, I haven't got the details to hand, organised by UNA in Westminster. You can Google, you can go hit it on the internet, and it will tell you how to register for that conference. I don't think you have to be a member of the United Nations Association to register.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you for that. Paulie.
Yeah, I found the talk very interesting and very disturbing, and it's pretty horrific, really. It's quite upsetting. It's called the Democratic. I mean, I didn't know an awful lot about it before, and I knew bits of what I read and everything, but it's called the Democratic Republic of Congo. Is it a democracy as we would know it? I mean, this Kibali, has he been elected by the people? Obviously, he's a dictator, is he? Or, I don't know. I know it's a difficult...
Democratic Republic of Congo.
That's just a name, isn't it?
It was known as the Belgian Congo at the time. And after the independence, because Congolese, when they did seek independence, they wanted really a democratic country, and they actually they did name it Democratic Republic of Congo because they wanted democracy. But right after the independence, like I said, a lot of intervention came from the Western and the first elected prime minister was killed. And from there, we've been in a dictatorship for more than 30 years. And lately, in 2006, we had the second election from 1960 to 2006. We had the second election. And Kabila, who is now the president, has been elected.
Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, unless anyone's got something burning to say about that, but that seems to answer the question.
I think it's important to point out that Patrice Lumumba was very much of a highly regarded man of his people, and he wanted to do things that I think if he had been allowed to live would have made a major difference. But the U.S. and many European countries thought didn't like the direction he was going. So it's not clear who actually pulled the trigger, as it were. But I mean, but we are culpable and in more ways than one. I mean, he wanted the natural resources of Congo for the benefit of the Congolese people. He wanted to do things. And the corporations, the companies, the exploiters were afraid they were going to lose their riches. Huh?
More Cold War. As well.
Okay, right, thank you.
I didn't hear.
Cool. I have to, sorry.
I absolutely. But Neville, you were asking what our organizations are doing. I mean, through the women from the DRC who we've met here in the UK, we have now made connections and are supporting a growing group of WILF women in the DRC who are amazingly strong women, who are working towards having a voice there. One of the 6 senators, who are women senators who Nunu mentioned, is a WILF member, and WILF is, I think, in its own little way, making an impact. But maybe you would know better.
Martha, thank you. That answers. I really must get through some. I must get through some questions. Yeah. Okay. Can you please keep these responses brief, because there are some people who want to get in.